Welcome back to the show. I know it's been a minute. I've been out here in these Louisiana streets. You know how that go. I've been at my mama house. I've been everywhere. I am exhausted from last week alone. But I am back with the same energy, the same angst, the same complaint as the last time you heard my voice. Still no arrest. Still no arrest. These people should be in jail. Governor John Bel Edwards, Colonel Lamar Davis, Chavez Cameron, Kenny Van Buren. I remember when the picture was circulated of these three state troopers, these three black officers making history in the state of Louisiana. There was so much pride about it. They were making history. What good does it do to have three black state troopers in the highest positions if they will assist others with covering up the brutal beating of a black unarmed motorist? What good does it do to have them in these positions? All of them have cells, jail cells waiting for them. All of them should be in jail. Not just the governor, not just Lamar Davis, Chavez Cameron, Kenny Van Buren, all the way up, all the way down. All of them. Every single person who participated in that cover-up should go to jail because he was beaten to death, and everybody knows it. And here we are, year 3, day 1152, 53, something like that. And not a single person has been arrested. John Belton, not a single person. The sun is about to set on another Friday night, and not a single person has been arrested. Not one. In the previous video, I explained that I was excited that D.A. Belton had gotten the file early June, and then weeks passed. Nothing. And then I'm thinking, okay, it's the last week in the month. Surely they're going to get this over with before the 4th of July holiday. Then the 4th of July passes. Then Tuesday, I'm thinking, okay, today is the day. Wednesday came, Thursday came, Friday came. Still waiting. Year 3, day 1152. No charges. If you have ever been tased before, you know you don't want to have that feeling again. You do not want to be tased more than one time in life. Imagine getting tased more than once when you are no threat to anybody. Imagine that, how painful that is. Let's go back to where this tragedy actually begun. This nightmare started with a traffic stop. A traffic stop. According to the Louisiana State Police, an officer attempted to stop Ronald Greene, but he refused to stop. To this day, it is unknown what was the reason for the traffic stop. Was he speeding? Did he not come to a complete stop at a stop sign? Did he failure to signal? What was the reason for the traffic stop? It is unknown 3 years later. And I know what you're thinking. If he would have just pulled over when he saw the lights, would this have happened? Yes, I think it would have still happened. You have to understand something. When you have officers that are out for blood, when they have a taste for blood, it doesn't matter what you do. They will escalate it. They will. My cousin took officers on like a multi-parish chase one time. And when we asked him, why did you do that? And he said, because he just didn't feel like fighting that day. Because you don't know what's going to happen even if you stop. Even if you stop and cooperate with the stop. get your citation and you just want to move on with your day. You could still end up in a fist fight. And he said he didn't feel like fighting that day. So he refused to stop. The officer that was involved with Kevin Robinson's case, he beat a man in Jefferson Parish. He beat a man until he pissed on himself. It's not about you stopping or not. Even if you flee a stop, it shouldn't cost you your life. At the conclusion of this traffic stop, instead of going on like a loudspeaker and saying, exit the vehicle with your hands up, they immediately charge the vehicle and tase him within seconds. More than once. And there was body cam footage. There was audio of the late Chris Hollingsworth bragging about it. Essentially bragging about beating a man to death. There are text messages of the governor and others discussing the cover-up. And we are at year 3, day 1152 or 53, something like that. And there are no arrests. There are no arrests. How many years does it take to arrest murderers? How many years does it take to do an investigation? How many more people have to be killed by the Louisiana State Police before something is done? What will it take? He was beaten to death. I talked about this in the previous video about how we are seen as a threat. Unarmed, but we are seen as a threat. Jayland Walker's family spoke about the fact that he was handcuffed. Ronald was handcuffed as well. He was handcuffed. Even in death, we are seen as a threat. We can have 6 officers surrounding us with guns, billy clubs, tasers, flashlights, all sorts of items. And all we have is 2 fists. And they will still see us as a threat, even in death. We could be unresponsive and we're still seen as a threat. Because the truth is, Ronald did not have a pulse when EMT arrived on the scene and placed him on the stretcher. They insisted that he stay handcuffed, both hands. They compromised and it was just the right hand. The EMT personnel understands that there's no pulse and they place him in the ambulance. 1 EMT personnel is in there and another officer slid his little self in there in that small cramped space because, again, Ronald is seen as an inmate at this point. Although he is deceased, he is handcuffed. And from the EMT's perspective, there's no pulse. They need to start compressions and they get tunnel vision. And they want him on a hard, flat surface so they can do their job. The officer would not remove the handcuffs from a dead man. They would only take 1 handcuff off. Even in death, we are seen as a threat. And when they arrived at the hospital, there was further negotiations to take the right handcuff off, although he had been deceased for about an hour. It took 20 minutes to get there and another 22 minutes to get to the hospital. He was deceased, and they still did not want to take the handcuff off so they could get him off of the EMT stretcher and onto the stretcher that belonged to Glenwood Medical. Now tell me how sick you would have to be to find a dead man a threat to you. Where is the justice? Where is it? 3 years later, 1,100 plus days. Where is the justice? How long does it take? And I don't really think justice is the right word. It's not. There will never be justice for beating a man to death. There will never be justice. You know, I don't know, how let me allow me a second to collect myself. But understand, I'm talking about charges and people going to prison. But just know, even that is not justice. Do you honestly think that that is the fix? It rights a wrong? Do you think that when something like this happens, you're never quite right? Do you honestly think that, I'm going to give an example here. Do you think that, a rainbow looks the same? Do you think that the sound of kids playing, children laughing, do you think that hits your heart the same way? Do you think the touch of like your husband's hand, do you think it feels the same? Do you think the food that you eat tastes the same if you eat? What do you think this so say justice really fixes? What does it fix? If you can, get it, what does it fix? The system is broken. It's a joke. It's a joke. Certain people are allowed to be brutalized, murdered, and thrown away. And whatever the aftermath of that is, then, just deal with it. Just deal with it. Colonel Reeves, the former head of the Louisiana State Police, said that the murder of Ronald Greene was awful but lawful. It was awful but lawful. Basically, it was awful, but it's lawful and we can do whatever we want. And he also stated that the procedures, they were working. And I'm just trying to figure out how.
Investigation, once Mr. Greene was murdered,
excuse me 1 second. I don't mean to interrupt you, but you used the term murdered.
Yeah,
nothing has been decided on Mr. Greene being murdered.
Once he was allegedly murdered, you just took a hands-off approach and said, I'll let the investigation take its course.
No, sir.
And in my opinion, he was murdered. And let me just preface by saying that's my opinion. Okay? Thank you. You just took a hands-off approach at that point.
No, sir. We didn't take a hands-off approach.
No, you specifically. Not.
Understand this, and let me make this very clear. Mm-hmm. I am ultimately responsible for the tenure that I was at Louisiana State Police for everything that happened. Mm-hmm. I am not in any way trying to shuck that off on anybody. I am the colonel of the state police for that period, and I am responsible. Now, I trust in our processes.
Well, he said he trusted in the process. The process allowed his boy, Bob Brown, his son, Jacob Brown, to rack up nearly 50 excessive force complaints. And when people would ask Bob Brown, how's Jacob doing? He would say, he's beating in heads. That's the process that was working. That's what he's talking about. He trusted the process. This is Colonel Reeves. This is the person who texted Governor Edwards to let him know what had happened. This is the person who allowed, who participated, who helped orchestrate this cover-up. He's one of them. He's one of the main ones. But he got ghosted when things got hot. He resigned. He got out of there. He should be in a jail cell next to Governor John Bel Edwards, next to Doug Kane, next to Lamar Davis, next to Chavez Cameron, next to Faye Morrison, next to a bunch of more people. I think there should be a special wing of Angola just for the Louisiana State police officers and friends and family. There should be a special wing just for these people because there's so many of them. They need a special little section for these criminals. This is organized crime. This is exactly what it is. It's organized crime. And here we are 3 years later, no arrest. No arrest. Because you had the governor standing in the middle of it. He was right there. And you talk about can lie with a straight face. I think that the governor feels as though it's been 3 years, I've gotten away with it. Kevin Reeves feels as though I've gotten away with this. Everybody is like, it's been 3 years and nothing has happened to us. We are indeed above the law and nothing has happened to us. That's what they feel. Lamar Davis, how could you? How could you? How could any of you, Kenny Van Buren, Chavez Cameron, how could you guys do what you did? This guy right here, this is Doug Kane. This is John Bel Edwards, Governor John Bel Edwards. This is his little cupcake. I'll leave that there. This is his little cupcake right here. He just retired 2 months ago. Everybody is getting ghosted. They think they can run. They think they can hide. But I just know they are not going to get away with this. They're not. They're not going to get away with it. One way or another, they are going to pay for what they have done. They're going to pay. And these black police officers that I understand that you didn't kill him. And I understand you have to provide and put food on the table. And I understand that you don't want to lose your job. But how could you participate, assist in any way with a cover-up? And if you think it wasn't a cover-up, I'm going to show you in the next episode. I'm starting with that night, the autopsy, and we're going to work our way outward from there. If you think it wasn't a cover-up, I'm going to show you he was indeed murdered.